Discover the incredible moment a waitress unveiled the mute mafia boss daughter's touching voice. Emma's fingers dripped with grease as she wiped down the counter, the familiar smell of burnt coffee drifting from the back of Rosie's diner. Just another Tuesday afternoon, but today, the rain tapped a desperate rhythm against the window, echoing her thoughts. She stood at a crossroads, a life defined by aprons and struggle, or a stage where her dreams could unfold. For as long as she could remember, her voice had been her refuge, yet here she was, a mere waitress drowning in unfulfilled ambition. What good was a dream buried under unpaid bills and the weight of her mother's illness? The bell over the door chimed, breaking her reverie. In walked a woman, draped in layers of expensive clothing yet cloaked in an unmistakable solitude. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper lay under the surface of this customer's expensive facade. As Emma brought over a steaming cup of coffee, she noticed the way the woman's eyes held stories that never exited her lips. They shared a moment, a flicker of mutual understanding, two women worlds apart yet bound by a shared longing. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each passing day revealed more of Sofia's silent world, and Emma found herself yearning to pull her friend from the shadows. In each shared sandwich and whispered dream, Emma took on the role of a voice for Sofia, despite her own crippling self-doubt. What if she was overstepping, assuming too much? What right did she have to drag someone from the depths of fear? The diner's walls echoed with every negative thought, every whispered concern from the regulars. But she couldn't abandon Sofia, she wouldn't. The joy of their fleeting laughter sliced through Emma's stagnant life, propelling her to confront a fear that clawed at her heart, the oppressive grip of Sofia's father, a man caught in the ruthless world of shadows. Would he shatter their fragile bond? She felt like a juggler teetering on a knife's edge, wrestling with a tempest of anxiety. What awaited them? Then the storm broke. Rumors about their friendship spread like wildfire, filling the air of the diner with an unspoken dread. Emma's anxiety spiraled out of control. What had felt sacred began to feel like a risk, one that could unravel everything she held dear. As the ominous shadow of Sofia's father loomed closer, Emma felt the most heartbreaking truth: the cost of their friendship might spiral far beyond her own fears. Just then, in a moment that hung like a guitar string ready to snap, Emma discovered Sofia's hidden gift. An ethereal voice locked away by silence and fear. The realization ignited something within Emma: maybe they could shine together, escape the life paths others had laid before them. Could a midnight performance in the diner, their hidden world, set them free? Emma stood at the precipice, torn between desperate dreams and the lurking darkness threatening to engulf them both. Would she take that leap, risking it all, or would she let the tides of fate pull them under? The weight of Sofia's voice echoed in Emma's mind, lingering like the taste of bittersweet coffee. In that moment of clarity, Emma realized that a glimmer of hope had ignited within her, a chance to not only help Sofia but perhaps to resurrect her own long-silenced dreams. It was time to confront her fears and seize this opportunity, even if it meant challenging the very existence of their precarious friendship. In the days that followed, the diner became a clandestine hub of whispered plans and stolen moments. Emma and Sofia began turning their dreams into tangible reality, working tirelessly on their midnight performance. They carefully selected songs that resonated with both their experiences, allowing the lyrics to weave their stories together. Emma felt invigorated, as though her destiny was slipping back into her grasp. Moreover, watching Sofia's soul come alive as the rehearsals progressed sparked a raw energy within Emma. It was as if she was rediscovering her own voice through Sofia's, yet, obstacles loomed large. Emma could almost feel the disapproving glares of the diner's regulars bore into her back, their hushed conversations about the mafia influence vibrating through the air like a storm warning. Was she truly ready to step into the path of someone as dangerous as Sofia's father? Each night, anxiety coiled around her, but she found strength in their shared passion. They practiced late into the night under the dim glow of the diner's neon sign, singing into the darkness, believing in the sanctuary they were creating. But one evening, just as the bronzed sun dipped below the horizon, a shadow crossed the threshold of Rosie's diner. The door creaked open, and there he stood, Sofia's father, a figure carved from authority and intimidation. Emma's breath hitched. She fought against the urge to slip away into the kitchen. He scanned the room, unsettling the regulars no doubt accustomed to his ominous presence, before his gaze locked onto the two women hidden in the corner booth. Instinctively, Emma tightened her grip on her coffee cup, her heart thundering in her chest. Would he come to shatter their dreams soon after they had begun to take shape? "What are you doing here?" Sofia blurted out, panic cutting through the moment. Emma felt a tremor beneath the calm surface they had built. "Just checking on my daughter," he replied, his voice smooth yet layered with an underlying threat. "What are you two plotting in the shadows? Voice lessons?" In that instant, Emma understood that the very essence of her being was at stake. She grappled with the choice: she could shrink back into her usual role as a waitress, or she could stand and defend their dreams, no matter the cost. As she locked eyes with Sofia, she felt a surge of resolution. "We're not plotting, we're preparing," Emma found herself saying, the words pouring forth before she had a chance to second-guess herself. "Sofia has a beautiful voice, and she deserves to sing, just like I do." The rest of the diner seemed to hold its collective breath. Was she ready to confront this man whose very presence set off alarms through her gut? She was afraid, but she also felt an undeniable spark. Her passion could no longer remain hidden beneath layers of fear. They might be shadows of their former selves, but together, they could redefine their fate. Just then, Sofia's father leaned closer, his eyes narrowing in a mixture of surprise and danger. "And what if I don't approve?" Emma swallowed hard, sensing the pivotal moment stretching before them. She hadn't just possibly jeopardized herself, she had put everything on the line for Sofia. And yet, everything felt alive. Though the odds were insurmountable, she could finally articulate the will to rise, but before she could answer, a figure emerged from the back, someone unexpected, someone who could tilt the balance in their favor. Emma caught a glimpse of them, and it ignited a daring thought: perhaps fate was not as unyielding as she feared. The question loomed heavy in the air: would help come from an unexpected source, or would their dreams linger just out of reach, tainted by the shadows of fear? Only time would reveal the truth. Emma's heart raced as the figure materialized from the shadows at the back of the diner. The familiar silhouette of Arthur, the local musician, broke through her haze of anxiety. He had often regaled the diner with his soulful songs, and his presence filled the air with unspoken possibilities. "Everything okay here?" Arthur's voice cut through the tension, an anchor in a turbulent sea. Emma blinked, uncertainty flashing across her features. This encouragement could either embolden them or inflame Sofia's father. "Just a small performance prep," Emma managed, meeting Arthur's gaze with an uncomfortable smile, which faltered under the weight of the moment. Arthur peered inquisitively at Sofia's father, who had retreated into tense silence. "You know, a little music can make all the difference," Arthur continued, his casual demeanor juxtaposed with the looming threat. "I've heard you've got a couple of incredible voices over here." Sofia's father squinted, visibly annoyed but momentarily distracted. The brief window of opportunity whetted Emma's courage. "Exactly," Emma said, stepping slightly forward. "We're preparing for an open mic night over at Parnell's next week. Just trying to find our footing." The nervous energy coursed through her. She could sense the chance slipping from their grasp as the disapproval radiated from Sofia's father. "Open mic?" He arched an eyebrow, his voice dripping with skepticism. "And you think anyone here will want to hear you croon?" Emma felt the world tilt on its axis. No longer content to hide, she chose to engage instead of retreat. "I think they will," Emma replied, no longer just fighting for Sofia but for herself as well. "We've got stories to tell, and it's about time we shared them." Sofia glanced at Emma, her eyes wide. Did Emma mean that? Could they press forward, unyielding in the face of the storm swirling around them? How charming, Sofia's father said, a sardonic smile twisting his lips. But I hope you're prepared for the reality check that comes when ambition meets limitations. What should have been a devastating blow galvanized Emma further. She had always felt diminished, a mere waitress existing in the shadows of others. But now, standing resolute, she finally recognized that the shackles of uncertainty could be broken. "We'll be ready," she asserted. "It's time to break out of the limits you place on both of us." Arthur's presence was comforting, as he nodded in solidarity. "Music has a way of breaking through walls, don't you think?" Sofia squeezed Emma's hand beneath the table, their shared defiance radiating into the space around them. The disbelief twisted into a conviction between them, the feeling that they could change the narrative of their lives. "None of you will disrupt my daughter's future," her father growled, the words dripping venom. Emma's resolve wavered briefly under the weight of his gaze, yet she refused to cower. "She deserves a voice," Emma countered, breathing in deeply, summoning whatever resolve she had left. "We all do. You can't silence us forever." The tension crackled as Arthur shifted, ready to champion their cause further. "He's right, music isn't just about performance, it's also about freedom. That's worth pursuing, regardless of the stakes." Would they be crushed by the reality he represented, or would they rise with the support of unexpected allies? The silence that followed was a heartbeat between breaths, and Emma sensed that their lives danced on the brink of transformation. In that revelatory moment, she understood that both fear and courage could coexist, that the potential for growth thrived in risk. They were no longer mere shadows but architects of their realities, but just as she readied herself for the next step, a deep voice cut through the tension once more. "Then let us see if you can really sing under pressure," Sofia's father countered, an unsettling challenge in his tone. "I'll be watching. And I don't tolerate failures." In that instant, the challenge hung thick in the air, demanding resolution, a high-stakes confrontation looming at the brink of their newfound aspirations. Emma glanced at Sofia, the weight of the moment yet unknown, but she felt a thrill of determination. This was not just about music, it was about claiming their lives. Her pulse quickened, the time had come to face an impenetrable wall. The performance on the horizon was no longer a distant dream. It was a battleground. "What now?" Sofia whispered, and Emma felt the thrill of their shared journey coalesce. "Now," Emma said, heart surging with resolve, "we take the first step into the unknown." Emma stood at the edge of the precipice. She had always feared the unknown territory of her own potential. The words of Sofia's father still hung in the air, thick with the weight of a challenge that could either smother or ignite their aspirations. She could feel her heart pounding, an echo of the dreams she had hidden away for far too long. "We take the first step into the unknown," she repeated softly to herself as she glanced at Sofia. In that moment, she embraced the vulnerability of their situation. It was a risk, yes, but it was also an invitation to discover who she truly was. "Let us practice," Emma declared, her voice steadying as she turned back to Arthur. "I think we need to prove him wrong, show him how powerful our voices can be." Arthur smiled, a spark ignited in his eyes. "I can play for you both. You know that every note we hit has the power to shake assumptions, right?" Sofia nodded, determination gleaming in her eyes. Emma could see the storm of doubt beginning to clear. "Yes, let us do it. We need to be ready." The rhythm of the diner pulsed with an energy unlike anything Emma had experienced before. It felt alive, resonating with every note that drifted from the small stage area where Arthur set up his guitar. In that space, she was not just a waitress anymore, she was a participant in her own life, forging connections through the music that danced around them. As Emma and Sofia practiced, vulnerability washed over them. They experimented with harmonies, their voices intertwining. Each note became an affirmation, a rejection of the limitations that had been placed upon them. Emma's deep-seated self-doubt ebbed away, replaced by a rising tide of confidence. They poured out their insecurities through their songs, weaving narratives of struggle, resilience, and hope. "Can you feel that?" Emma asked in between songs. "It's like we're reclaiming everything we've buried." Sofia smiled, a brief flicker of fear crossing her features, followed by an expansive determination. "It feels right. For the first time, I'm not just Sofia, I'm an artist." With every session, Emma began to uncover aspects of herself she had long thought were obscured beneath layers of doubt. She found not only her voice but also a strength she didn't know resided within her. No longer was she a mere accomplice in someone else's story, but a vibrant protagonist eager to write her own. The exhilarating rush of discovery drowned out the critical voices that had plagued her for years, yet, with exhilaration came deeper questions, budding dilemmas that would put her newfound determination to the test. Could she genuinely confront the reality of failure? Would she dare to defy the expectations of Sofia's father not only for the sake of music but for their own futures? As they stood on the brink of their performance, pricking at the doubts that still lurked beneath the surface, Arthur broke the weighty silence. "Just remember, it's not about perfection. It's about expressing what's in here." He pressed his hand to his heart, his voice unwavering. Sofia, emboldened by Arthur's encouragement, turned to Emma, her eyes filled with a mix of anticipation and fear. "We're ready, right? No matter what happens, we've come this far." Emma felt the swirling tide of uncertainty and excitement merge into a single wave that crashed against her resolve. She nodded, though apprehension clenched at her gut. "Yes, we're ready," she affirmed. "But can we handle the consequences?" In that moment, the weight of Sofia's father's looming presence felt heavier. The challenge was set, and with it came the chance for both empowerment and peril. The question remained: would they rise above the expectations set upon them, or would the fear of failure pull them back into the shadows? Then, as they steadied their breaths, a thought flashed through Emma's mind: the battle ahead was not merely for the audience or for approval but for the very right to their own voices. "Together then," Sofia said, squeezing Emma's hand once more, anticipation flickering in her eyes. "Together," Emma echoed, her resolve. Hardening as they stepped back into the whirlwind of preparation, the music blared louder, resonating a resounding promise of transformation. Would they seize their calling, or would they falter in the face of judgment? With their first night of performance approaching, failure wasn't an option not any longer. But Emma's thoughts turned with a pulse of fear as she realized, what if the ultimate test comes not from the crowd but from the very people we want to impress most? The stage loomed ahead, reflecting not just an opportunity but a battleground where true lives and futures could possibly change. Emma could feel the electrical tension in the air as the night approached. Everything hung on a delicate thread, a tangible excitement that threatened to snap with the slightest misstep. Practicing their songs had transformed her apprehension into a simmering intensity. Each strum of Arthur's guitar felt like a heartbeat, a reminder that this was the moment they had fought for. As she glanced at Sofia, Emma noted the mix of anticipation and loyalty in her friend's eyes. It was a moment fraught with potential, a convergence of dreams and fears. They had spent hours in the diner, carving their identities into the melodies they created, and now the stage awaited them, a canvas for their voices. "Do you think they'll really listen?" Sofia asked, her earlier bravado giving way to a fresh wave of doubt. Emma recognized the vulnerability in her friend and felt a surge of determination swell within her. "They will listen," Emma stated, the conviction in her own voice catching her by surprise. She hadn't just been practicing her notes, she had been reclaiming her identity, who she was beneath the layers of doubt and uncertainty. Behind the counter, Arthur appeared secure, tuning the guitar, a maestro preparing for a grand performance. If only their internal struggles could be as easily adjusted as the strings of his instrument. He caught Emma's eye and offered a nod, a silent agreement about the stakes of this moment. As patrons filed into the diner, chatter enveloped them like a fog. Emma took a deep breath, grounding herself, feeling her feet on the floor, reconnecting with the space around her. But with each passing minute, her heart thumped louder. Would her voice carry the weight of their shared stories? "Remember," Arthur chimed in, "it's not about impressing anyone. It's about what you have to say. Emma felt a comforting bolt of resilience flow through her at his words. This was her chance to break free from the confines of her previous existence, a chance to infuse her pain and joy into the rawness of their music. The moment they stepped on that stage, they would not be defined by who they were supposed to be but by who they chose to be in that instant. Finally, the moment arrived. The three of them took their positions. Emma's palms were slick with sweat, and the room quieted as all eyes turned toward them. She glimpsed a familiar figure sitting at the front, Sofia's father, his presence an indomitable wall of scrutiny. This was not just a performance but a reckoning, shaped by the fear of not meeting expectations but transformed through the power of shared experience. Emma glanced sideways at Sofia, who nodded imperceptibly. It was a pact of solidarity, a unification of their journeys. As Arthur strummed the opening chords, Emma let her breath flow steadily, embracing the melody that charged through her. With the first words spilling out, she felt as though she was stepping into her skin for the first time, unearthing facets of herself that had long been buried. There was magic in the air, an intangible shimmer, as their voices layered over one another like a tapestry, weaving stories of losses, triumphs, and the fierce desire to break free. Each note became a tribute to every moment they had hesitated, every time they had silenced their own truths, yet, as they poured their souls into the performance, a flicker of doubt clawed at Emma's psyche. What if this isn't good enough for him? What if their story was drowned out by the noise of his expectations? In the midst of the music, Emma's gaze flicked towards Sofia's father, searching for acknowledgement. Would he recognize the artistry in his daughter's voice? Would he see beyond the surface to the effort and emotion standing before him? As the last note faded, silence enveloped the diner, pregnant with disbelief and tension, suffocating yet exhilarating. They had laid bare their souls, and the aftermath hung heavy in the room. Did we just do that? Sofia whispered, eyes wide with both fear and exhilaration. Emma felt her pulse quicken, the uncertainty of the reception surging through her. I think, but before she could finish, a voice broke through the tension and Emma realized, this moment of truth was just beginning. Who do you think you are to stand here and claim your voice? The challenge resonated in the air, dripping with contempt and skepticism. The room shifted, and Emma's stomach sank as she recognized the source. This was not just a performance. It was a confrontation, and now the real battle for their identities had begun. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she processed the weight of the words that had just shattered the moment. The voice belonged to someone she couldn't ignore, a local critic known for his harsh assessments and unapologetic opinions. As he loomed in the shadows of the diner, she could already feel the chill of his skepticism wrapping around her, threatening to extinguish the illumination of her newfound confidence. Who are we? She wondered, her internal dialogue a frantic swirl of thoughts. The crowd, earlier enchanted by their performance, now stood riveted by the confrontation, a battleground formed between potential and derision. Doubt clawed at her confidence like the nails of a predator. Would this man's words echo louder than their music? Sofia shifted nervously, glancing at Emma, who felt the weight of her friend's anxious presence. It was suffocating. For a fleeting moment, Emma contemplated fleeing the stage, letting the critic's words drown their efforts, but an internal spark ignited within her. This was her moment, not just for music but for identity, for courage. Actually, Emma found her voice rising above the shared uncertainty. We are the ones who decided to step out into the light and share our stories. Who are you to silence us? The sharpness of her reply pierced through the tension like a clear note returned to its original pitch. There was a moment's pause, the collective breath of the diner lodging in the throats of onlookers. Sofia's father, visible in the crowd, seemed taken aback. He wasn't ready for that response, nor was anyone else. Who do you think you are? The critic countered, throwing Emma's own question back at her. But this time, his voice faltered, as if the act of questioning his quarry had lost its sting. I'm someone who was always soft-spoken, Emma said, her voice revealing a grounded steadiness she didn't know she possessed. But I've learned that it's time to speak up, and our music is merely the beginning. This isn't just about us being heard, it's about everyone who has felt invisible. Arthur, who stood slightly behind, steadfastly held his guitar, its strings alive under his hands like a shield ready to defend their honor. Seeing Emma's courage was all he needed. He stepped forward, strumming a melody that layered harmoniously with Emma's words, urging them onward. With newfound fervor, Emma met the critic's gaze directly, challenging him and thereby herself. It was no longer just about the music, it was a declaration of their identities, a rejection of being overlooked. And in that moment, her resolve crystallized. They had the power to shape this narrative, not just as performers, but as the authors of their stories. I may be a waitress, but I carry the weight of my own experiences, my own songs. We all have something to say, and I'm not here to ask for permission. The room rippled with a current of energy, her words igniting flickers of recognition among the patrons. There was a shift in the atmosphere. The initial reluctance of the crowd melted away, transforming into a collective acknowledgement of what true authenticity meant. People were nodding, their expressions shifting from skepticism to respect. Even Sofia's father seemed momentarily caught off guard, his rigid demeanor softening slightly. In that charged silence, Emma understood an essential truth: the stories they shared had the power to bridge divides, penetrate walls built by judgment or expectation. This realization was liberating. A swell of exhilaration surged through her, threatened only by the understanding that vulnerability could also breed immense strength. The critic hesitated, unsure of how to respond to such a raw declaration of self. As the seconds stretched, Emma's breathing steadied. Perhaps it was enough that they had given voice to their truths, and perhaps the space would lend itself to acceptance, or at least an invitation for dialogue rather than disdain. Sofia reached for Emma's hand, squeezing it tightly as their shared dreams began to coalesce into something much larger than either imagined. They had embarked on a path paved with courage, ready to confront edges of their identities that had long lain dormant, but just as hope blossomed, the critic opened his mouth once more. Recognition isn't just what you find in performance, he stated, the edge returning to his voice. Let us see if you can back up those words with substance. Emma felt the stir of fear but also the invigorating tingle of challenge. The path before her was fraught with uncertainty, but she had already initiated her transformation. This was no longer a narrative defined by scrutiny but one of assertion. Then give us that chance, Emma challenged, her heart leaping. We will show you what we are, not just as performers, but as creators of our destinies. With the stage bathed in a new light of determination, they stood poised for the next chapter of their story. Emma felt the pull of something immense before them, but realized that true recognition would require more than a performance. It was a promise to continue melding their identities into the music that flowed through their veins. The challenge posed an opportunity, as daunting as it was exhilarating, urging her to dig deeper into her capabilities in ways she had yet to explore. Now, as the crowd awaited the unfolding of their journey, the question remained: what would it take for Emma to rise from this burgeoning confrontation, embracing not just her talents but the full spectrum of her potential? Emma could feel the pulse of the room quicken, the air charged with an unspoken challenge after the critic's words hung between them like a fragile string. The audience had shifted from mere observers to potential allies, their breaths caught in a collective anticipation. She could sense that this was not just about her anymore, it was a dance with destiny, an exploration of depth that she had long avoided. Substance, she repeated in her mind. The word rang as loudly as a bell. What did it mean to substantiate their claims? To her, it had always felt like the invisible thread tying the fabric of her ambitions together. She needed to discover what that could look like for them beyond the notes and lyrics of their songs, beyond the surface of their performance. Sofia squeezed her hand, grounding Emma amidst the whirlpool of doubt and fear. Perhaps this was a moment to redefine their roles, not as mere performers looking for approval, but as passionate creators ready to embrace their narrative fully. A wave of determination surged, quieting the inner turmoil that had threatened to reclaim her focus. Arthur, still strumming softly, leaned in close. What do you want to show them? He asked quietly, their eyes locking in an unspoken understanding. It was a question that transcended the immediate confrontation, reaching into the very core of her journey. I want them to see us, Emma replied, her voice steadying into a resolve that wobblingly danced upon the precipice of vulnerability and strength. To see the heart behind the music, our struggles, and our victories the subtle connection sparked between them, an unfiltered exchange of aspirations and fears. Emma realized that if they were to truly convey substance, they would need more depth than she had previously allowed herself to embrace. Let us tell our story, she decided, her words formulating into a plan. Not just through songs, but through the way we weave our experiences into every note. With her heart racing, she began to visualize what each song could portray. The realization hit her: she wasn't just a waitress. She was a storyteller, a connector of experiences to melodies, and with each song, she could peel back layers of her past, illuminating the paths that brought her here. But that required courage, the ability to expose her vulnerabilities on stage and let the audience witness the entire journey, not just the polished final result. Emma turned to the crowd, her nerves sloughing away like old skin. We are here standing on a bridge where our stories meet your ears. This next piece isn't just a song. It's a tale written in chords and feelings that we want to share. Each word transformed her fear into focus, crafting a narrative that felt authentic and empowering. The critic remained silent, though Emma noticed a glimmer of intrigue in his eyes. Words were pouring from her now, unbidden and powerful. This one comes from the truth of being in a place where your voice feels stifled and yet a desire burns to break free eternally. Let it resonate with the stories we all share. She stepped back, forming a triangle with Sofia and Arthur. The weight of the critic's judgment was now the fuel that forged their resolve, not the barrier holding them back. As Emma initiated the first chords of their song, the room transformed. No longer just passive observers, the audience leaned in, reflecting her burgeoning connection with every heartbeat. Emma put everything she had into the performance, channeling her past, her dreams, and every moment of doubt she had overcome, verbalizing the struggle into a melody that danced through the air. Yet, amid the swell of music and the flickering lights, she felt the shadow of the critic's lingering skepticism tugging at her consciousness. Would the music, this raw and real extension of herself, silence the doubt that had once entangled her? With every note played, Emma made a commitment to herself. This was not merely a performance, it was an unveiling of who she could be, an authentic expression of her journey. As they played into the crescendo, she knew this moment was only the beginning. And as the final chords resonated, she caught sight of the critic again, still writing. Would he find merit in authenticity? Would her revelation be enough to spark a change beyond judging? The echo of music faded, and she waited, breath held, as realities converged into meaning. What lay in the aftermath of this pivotal moment? Would they emerge as the creators they aspired to be, or risk slipping back into the shadows? Emma's heart raced, knowing that discovery awaited just on the other side of this transformation. A silence enveloped the room like a thick fog, the aftermath of their performance hanging palpably in the air. Emma's heart thudded against her ribcage as she surveyed the audience, searching for signs of engagement, approval, or even disapproval. The critic, still scribbling fiercely in his notepad, became the focal point of her anxiety. His resolve seemed impervious, but her resolve was equally fierce. She had exposed a piece of her soul, the question looming now was whether he'd recognize the depth of that offering. Did we reach them? Sofia's voice pierced through Emma's thoughts, filled with hope yet tinted by the tension she felt as well. Emma considered the moment, allowed feelings of uncertainty to roll through her mind. I think we did, she concluded, not entirely convinced. The critical eye of the room had the power to sway her budding momentum, but she fought against the instinct to retreat into self-doubt. Instead, she thought about the story they had told, the pain, the resilience, and the relentless pursuit of freedom manifested in each chord. Suddenly, she recalled the weight of what she had just embraced. She was not merely performing, she was taking ownership of her narrative. This was an essential moment of clarity, the realization that the voice she channeled was uniquely hers. Each moment on stage was an opportunity to reveal more than mere talent, it was a chance to connect on a level she had never dared to explore deeply. She turned to Arthur, whose face mirrored her own whirlwind of thoughts. We need to keep pushing this, she said, determination seeping back into her words. We can't let one critiqued performance define us. Absolutely, Arthur replied, his eyes sparkling with inspiration. Do we have more songs ready to tell even more of our story? The question made Emma pause and reflect. They had a repertoire built on shared experiences, but digging deeper into their truths would require greater vulnerability. We need to blend our stories with even more raw feelings. To create something that is not just heard but felt. The prospect thrilled her. What would it mean to share the kind of struggle that felt insurmountable? To express the rawest of emotions lurking beneath the surface? What would that say not just about them, but about what it meant to be alive in this world? Let us make our next piece a reflection of the darkness some of us carry around, Emma suggested, her voice steady again, now thick with purpose. We'll talk about our fears, our failures, and how we rise from them. As they began to outline their new piece, Emma found herself descending into a creative spiral, filled with memories she hadn't fully addressed. Her past had instilled self-doubt, shadows of inadequacy lingering from experiences that had silenced her voice until now, but this exploration felt risky. What if revisiting those feelings meant exposing herself to potential ridicule, feeling bare before an audience that might not understand? Emma's stomach clenched at the thought. Yet she realized this was the essence of authenticity, taking the risk to showcase her struggle while emerging stronger. As the three of them delved into this process, Emma noticed her energy shift. Each note sketched not just a melody but a bridge to her past, a whispered promise of catharsis. The act of creating and confronting simultaneously started to take form, igniting a fire in her belly that she hadn't felt in years. Yet amidst her resolve, the specter of the critic lingered, a reminder that judgment was unpredictable. Would he recognize the bravery and vulnerability, or would he critique them for daring to be real? As Emma played the opening chords of their new endeavor, she understood that the forthcoming confrontation, be it acceptance or rejection, would mark a pivotal moment forward in her journey. She was ready to unveil even more of herself, but the weight of binary outcomes poised to break her thrust forward into vulnerability, and as the music began to unfold, so did the possibilities, the reminder that being true to oneself was both a weapon and a shield. Would they manage to reshape their future, or would the fear of judgment pull them back into obscurity? The stakes had grown higher, and as she looked at Sofia and Arthur, determination mingled with unease. Emma was about to step into the unknown, knowing the cost of authenticity could be both immeasurable and transformative. Could they harness this momentum, or would it slip through their fingers like a whispered dream? As Emma strummed the guitar strings, the vibrations filled the air with sweetness, carrying her into a world where the past and present intertwined. Each chord became a portal, a connection to memories she had hidden in the recesses of her mind, old fears that felt larger than life, triumphs that now seemed like fragile whispers. Sofia and Arthur watched her closely, readying their voices to harmonize with the emotions she channeled. The vulnerability and power of delving into their shared experiences ignited a fervor within her. What if we opened with the lines about despair? The heaviness dragging us down but eventually leading to hope, Emma proposed, her mind racing with imagery. Yes, Arthur replied, his voice steady. We can encapsulate both the darkness and the light. That's where people find solace, knowing they're not alone in their struggles. But how do we express that authentically? How do we ensure we don't slip into clichés? Sofia questioned, a furrow forming on her brow. Emma paused. The very real fear of sounding inauthentic loomed over her. They had all heard the hollow recitations of pain before, wrapped in melodrama. They needed to dig, to unearth the raw edges of their experiences. We cannot shy away from the details. Let us remember the moments that crushed us, the whispers of doubt, the critical eyes we felt watching us, as real as they are. As they brainstormed, Emma's vision sharpened. She relived a moment she had buried, the day she had been too afraid to sing for fear of being laughed at. Humiliation had crushed her voice, and the echo of that silence resonated through her mind. What if sharing that fear could resonate with others? Would opening the wound allow healing for herself and the audience alike? The deeper she ventured, the more emboldened she felt. Each shared vulnerability was a step toward reclamation, a small revolution against the silence imposed by her insecurities. Yet apprehension lurked just beneath the surface, the realization that being this exposed could lead to a spectrum of reactions from praise to ridicule. Let us break down the walls, Emma asserted, her voice firm. This next performance isn't just about what we want to say, it's about leaving a piece of ourselves on that stage. No more masks. The atmosphere shifted, the weight of their commitment transforming into a tangible force that propelled them forward. They had embarked on an emotional excavation that demanded honesty, courageous insights, and genuine articulation. Emma could feel the stakes rise, an exhilarating tension carrying them deeper into uncharted waters. Days turned into a blur of rehearsals. Late nights spent perfecting melodies morphed into discussions filled with laughter, tears, and the realization that they were on a journey not just as performers, but as storytellers connected through experience. Emma rediscovered elements of her character, dimensions of her spirit that had long been dormant. This was about more than music, it was about breaking the silence of her past, but as the performance date approached, Emma felt the weight of her decision increasingly coalesce into a critical question: was this truth worth the cost? Would they embrace the vulnerability and emerge changed, or would the fear of judgment suffocate them, extinguishing the possibility of connection? It was time to confront the audience, to see whether the risk they took would lead to validation or reflection. In that moment of introspection, she held on to the belief that authenticity could carve paths to understanding even if it meant facing the critic's sharp gaze. As Emma prepared to step out onto the stage once more, she felt a jolt of adrenaline. The moment of truth was near, and there was no turning back. It was not just about the music anymore, it was about finding the courage to share her voice unapologetically. But as her heart raced with anticipation, a chilling thought surfaced: what if her biggest fear materialized right before her eyes? The critic's pen had yet to lift, and the silence before her performance stood ominously heavy. Was she ready for what lay ahead, or was it about to unravel her? Her breath caught as the spotlight flickered, signaling the start. She knew this was only the beginning of her journey into the heart of vulnerability. It was a journey fraught with uncertainty, yet illuminated by the faint flicker of possibility. The stakes had never felt higher. Could she navigate the storm, or would it sweep her away into obscurity? Emma stood in the wings, heart pounding and palms sweating, the weight of the past and the uncertainties of the future coalescing into a singular, unstoppable force. This was at the culminating moment of her transformation. They had rehearsed, stripped bare the layers of doubt and insecurity, and poured their souls into every note. Yet, the specter of judgment lingered, a palpable reminder of the commitment they made to not only perform but to connect with the audience on a deeper, more authentic level. As she stepped onto the stage, the lights enveloped her, igniting a spark of courage. The performance didn't just represent a leap into the spotlight, but a declaration that she was worthy of being seen and heard. Beside her, Sofia and Arthur mirrored that same determination, their faces alight with purpose. Together, they embodied a collective defiance against the shadows that had long threatened to consume them. Taking a deep breath, Emma began the song. The lyrics tumbled forth, raw and unfiltered, woven with threads of pain but also of resilience. Each chord resonated through the diner, transcending mere sound to become a tapestry narrated by three voices steeped in shared experience. Emma felt the narratives they had crafted wrap around her, coalescing into something more significant than individual fears. In this moment, she was not merely Emma the waitress, she was Emma the storyteller, the artist carving her identity out of the echoes of doubt. With every verse sung, she felt the audience shifting, murmurs of recognition mixing with the air thick with vulnerability. She glanced briefly at the critic, watching for signs of derision or judgment. Instead, his pen paused, his focus intent. There was a flicker of something unfamiliar in his eyes, perhaps curiosity. Emma seized that moment, driving her beliefs home with renewed fervor. This wasn't just their story, it was a universal narrative of self-discovery, one that resonated with anyone who had ever felt invisible. As the final note lingered in the air, the dynamic atmosphere of the diner seemed to hold its breath, caught between reflection and acceptance. Moments stretched into eternity. And then it happened: the first clap, hesitant yet sincere, followed by a wave of applause that cascaded through the room. A ripple of understanding surged as the audience released their held breaths, transforming the weight of expectations into a buoyant affirmation of authenticity. Emma's heart swelled, a deep-seated pride erupting within her. They had not merely performed, they had ushered in a catharsis, a lighthouse illuminating the power of vulnerability in a world that constantly sought to dampen it. Amid the resounding applause, she caught sight of Sofia's father, his expression unyielding but softening slightly, as if cracks were forming in the armor he had worn for so long. Perhaps, for the first time, he was beginning to grasp the sheer power of his daughter's voice, unbound by the chains of expectation. As they stepped back from the edge of the stage, Emma felt a profound sense of accomplishment washing over her. Her journey had not just opened a door for Sofia but had thrown wide the windows of her own potential. She had conquered the paralyzing grip of fear, transforming it into a powerful fuel that paved the way for her to embrace her identity fully. In that moment, she realized there would always be challenges and critics, but she was ready to face them head-on, armed with the knowledge that her voice mattered. She would no longer settle for the shadows. The diner had become her launching pad, a place where dreams took flight, and she knew the sky was vast and welcoming. With newfound confidence, Emma took a step toward the audience, a smile breaking across her face. The journey of transformation was only just beginning, and she felt an exhilarating freedom in knowing she had taken the first steps toward a future shaped by her choices, dreams, and voice. This was her moment of triumph, an achievement grounded in self-discovery and validation. As the light poured down upon her, she turned to Sofia and Arthur, the warmth of their shared resolve radiating through her core. Together, they had woven a tapestry of resilience and empowerment, igniting a sense of hope that extended far beyond the walls of Rosie's diner. The future awaited, brimming with promises of new performances, new songs, and unfathomable possibilities, and Emma was ready to embrace it all. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us uplift the power of personal overcoming stories.